Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. It is about writing and publishing a book for business owners. You're here because you're a business owner and you're interested in learning to write and publish a book of your own. This has been unbelievably popular. I did not think that this session was going to be as have so much interest in it through Eventbrite. You kind of get an idea early when you put something up, and I have a lot of different topics specific to the solopreneur and the business owner, the small business owner. And you get kind of a sense for what's going to be interesting pretty soon. Like usually when you post something within the first day or so, you kind of get a sense of how it's going to do. And this one kind of blew my socks off. I was not expecting there to be so many people. So welcome. For those of you, if you are, please let me know where you're from, first and foremost. Let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in, because we have a lot to cover and I want to make it very relevant to you. Because again, you're here because you are interested in writing and publishing a book for business owners. And as you go ahead and type in the comment section, just let me know where you're from and the line of work that you're in, so I can make this session more relevant to you as you kind of let me know. So let's see here. We've got Clarissa burning up she is got us in there first. Hi, I'm from Eastern, I'm assuming Washington. I'm going to take a stab at that. And then holistic healthcare. Excellent, Clarissa. And you're looking to write and publish a book. I think that's fantastic. And so far, don't have anybody else in there just yet. Give me a second here. I'm just trying to figure out one of the settings here. The settings on, I absolutely love StreamYard. This is the platform that we're on right now. But it sometimes changes things and it drives me bananas. So, all right, Clarissa, we got Janice joining us. Janice Johnson from Northern Virginia, retired author and have a newsletter for veterans. Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you for that. I am not retired, but I was active duty Marine, still a Marine, just I'm not on payroll anymore. That makes sense. All right. Well, thank you for what you do. Janice, and then we've got Glenn, planning and development consultant in Victoria, Australia. Oh man, it is got to be very, very early there, or late, however you're depending on. Are you looking at that, Glenn? Very good. Glad. Thank you for joining us from Australia. We got Tanya, another person from Australia, Sydney. So in Sydney, Australia, counseling and coaching. Excellent. Very good. Thank you for joining today. Man, it is early for you guys. Very good. Well, thank you so much for joining. And we got Eva from Slovakia and into marketing and yoga. Fantastic. Very good. Man, we have got it's 7 a.m. Oh, I was thinking it was way earlier. Okay. Yeah, I guess it would be 15 hours different from where we're at. Okay, excellent. I spent a fair amount of time when I was in the Marine Corps. I'm trying to think if I made it to Sydney. I know I was in Brisbane for a while. And I really enjoyed it down there. We got D in Laguna Beach, California. Man, we have got all sorts of people representing all sorts of different time zones. Janice says, thank you for your service. I'm an Army veteran. Well, thank you, Janice, for your service. And it was truly my honor. It was truly my honor. And we have D, and she was a chef and in cooking school. Very good. All right, so I'm getting the kind of sense in terms of what it is that you guys and gals are going to want to be writing about, what you're doing. That is very, very helpful because we have a lot of material to cover. And I've been getting some emails and some messages along the way because I started promoting this a month ago. And like I said, it's interesting to see how many people were trying to get into this. And they were like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to sure if I can make it, but I really want to sign up for it. Listen, if you have signed up for this through Eventbrite, you will be getting the replay that will be delivered directly to you. So I just want to make sure that you know that. So if you cannot stay the entire time, I recognize that you have other engagements and things like that, because we're probably going to be a little bit over an hour on this. And I just want to let you know that in advance. So you will be getting the replay if you're not able to stay, or if there's a topic and you're like, hey, how did he say that? Listen, the other thing is too, you can ask questions, right? So if you missed a topic and you want to kind of get back in the replay, you'll get the replay for that. But if you have a question, just type it in the chat. In this training, I have baked in the cake some natural stopping points. Number one, so I'll drink water along the way and not die. But the other way, the other thing is to answer questions. So ask specific questions. Don't say like, what did you mean by that? Because that might be 7 minutes ago and I have no idea what that means. So be really specific in your questions so I know how to answer them the best way. And let's see here. We've got Becky who is asking, hello, I'm Becky, interested in helping my son start his business and possibly write a book on enzyme deficiencies. Excellent, Becky. That is fantastic. We've got Kara from Maryland, Navy vet. Oh, all right. Well, thank you for your service, Kara. And studying business management. Okay, fantastic. And yeah, so it sounds like you're in school right now. You're very good. I'm in school too. I'm in a PhD program for organizational psychology, and I have not been in school for 25 years. So if it gives you any idea of what's happening to my brain right now. So Becky is saying, sorry, from Kentucky. Oh, very good. Well, very good, Becky. I am your neighbor to the north. I'm in Indiana. So let's see. Becky is saying, is everyone still waiting or am I having technical difficulties? We are all in as of right now. Maybe if you could, if someone wouldn't mind just sending a message to Becky for me, just say to maybe log out and log back in, just because sometimes that is the way to fix things. So, all right. So that is it. So let's get started. We've got a lot of things to cover here. I just want to tell you this right out of the gate, because I don't like people feeling like they're waiting for like a pitch or something along those lines. I don't have anything to sell you. I do have an offer at the end. So I guess I do have something to sell you. But here's the thing. I want to give you as much information as I can over the next hour or so. And I have a very low priced offer at the very end. And here's why. I had a lot of people, after I had done a couple of these, they were reaching out and they wanted me to mentor them in helping them write and publish a book. And here's the thing. A lot of the questions they were asking were questions that I could easily put out on a video that were not worth what I would have to charge to work with with individuals one-to-one. It was like they were very basic questions. So what I did is I put together a course, and I'm going to show you the course at the very end. If you're not interested, I will tell you, like, you're not going to hurt my feelings. And here's what I'm going to do. When I start talking about the course, I'm going to tell you in advance. So you can hop off if you're not interested, you hate my face, you got what you needed, and you're ready to go and do it on your own. Totally fine. I just want to let you know that I do have an offer at the end, because I always hate, like, feeling like people are like, okay, is there another shoe that's going to drop? I just want to tell you that right now. So that way you can decide in advance, like, hey, I got what I need. I'm ready to hop off. Sound good? All right. So I just want to let you know that in advance. All right. Yeah. So what I would recommend, Becky, if you can hear me, go ahead, log out and log back in, and you should be good to go. Sometimes I hear that sometimes, and sometimes that is the best way to do that. All right, so let us get to it. So you're here to learn to write and publish a book. And I know for some of you, you might be thinking, well, like, who am I to write or publish a book? Or I don't know how to write and publish a book. Or where do I even start? I'm afraid of criticism and all the just basically, let's call it what it is. It is nothing but head trash. And I understand what you're talking about. I get that fear of criticism, that fear of, well, what if I publish it and, people are going to, they find mistakes inside the book or whatever else it is, right? All of this stuff. And I'm telling you right out of the gate, that is what it was absolutely going through my mind when I published my very first book back in 2017. It was called The Time Wealthy Investor. And The Time Wealthy Investor was my very first book. It was a book about real estate, and a book about how to manage real estate that didn't take up all your time. Thus the context of, the time wealthy investor. So when I wrote that book, I had this imaginary thought that all of these people who didn't like me in my town were going to gather around this big table with copies of my book and be laughing and pointing and having a big old jovial expense, a big old laugh at my expense. And guess what? That never happened. And not only did that not happen, but that book became the playbook for all of my competitors to do the things that I was already doing. Isn't that interesting? So it was kind of funny, and it was really funny that, they didn't really even read, many of them didn't even read it, but many of the people who did read my book people who it was really meant for people way outside of my town, people from coast to coast in the United States that really wanted a better relationship with their time and not spend all their time operating their business. All of a sudden, I was able to help thousands of people. And it was a good book. It really was a good book. I'm not saying it was a good book because I wrote it. I'm saying it was a good book because I was able to make such an impact and really change people's lives. This is where I'm going to get to right out of the gate as we start talking about the agenda. That's one of the very first things we're going to talk about is the why. You need to know your why right before you ever even put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard. Does anybody actually even write like that anymore? I mean, I do. I enjoy the actual physical act of writing. I do enjoy that. Yeah, so hello. Hello, sir. Hello back. It's good to see you. All right. So we're going to get to the agenda. The agenda is going to be about the why. We're going to talk about the why first and foremost. We're also going to talk about the where and all of the wheres that you need to consider. There's the writing, the actual writing, and things for you to consider when you start writing, as well as what to do along the way. So we're going to be talking about the actual writing a little bit itself. So this is not necessarily a writing workshop. Remember, this is about writing and publishing. So to understand, we're going to be talking about writing things, but we're also going to be talking about some publishing things. This is not going to be a writing, a writing primer. This is going to be, we're going to be talking about all the different aspects of both writing and publishing. So I want to make sure you understand that. So you say I do. So you actually physically write? I love that. I actually have. Does anybody else have like a journal addiction? Like you cannot walk past a sexy looking journal, right? If it's like a journal, like something you just write. If it's anything that's got like some sort of puffy outside to it, man, and blank pages on the inside, it's like I can't walk away from it. So very good. Janice is saying I write as well. Very good. Yeah, I love writing. I actually do enjoy. Right now, like I mentioned, I'm in school and I have to print everything, and most of the stuff is read online and I can't. I have to actually print. So Ava is saying, yep, you just can't walk away from those writing tablets. I just absolutely love them. I'm a sucker for those things. And all right, so we're going to talk about the physical writing. We're also going to be talking about the most important thing. And if you don't have this, you're likely not going to get the results you want. So we'll talk about that, of course, at the end, and then the actual publishing. And like I said earlier, for those of you who are joining, and maybe if you're joining on YouTube, like I said earlier, if you sign up through Eventbrite, you'll be getting a replay of this sent to you in your email inbox. For those of you who are on YouTube, you can follow me. This will obviously be reposted on YouTube here in a little bit. But one other thing that I just want to make sure that, again, like I said early on, I'm not trying to push anything, but there is an offer that I have at the end here. So it's a low price offer. I think you may value it if you're looking to self-publish. All right. So these are the books here that I have. Let me, let's see here. Nothing like the good old pen and paper. Absolutely, Robert. I 100% agree. I love it. I'm not going to admit those vulnerabilities here. Well, Clarissa, I don't have an empty journal to sell you. All right, so you're free. Put your credit card away. And Jake is saying classic black leather notebook in hand for today. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. It's funny. I had back in my under the if you look at the screen here real quick. So if you look at the book at the top left of that, that's my very first book. It's called The Time Wealthy Investor. And if you go kind of around, you'll see the Judge is the one all the way at the bottom. That was my first kind of novel. I actually wrote, it was a novel, but it was definitely towards a business client, and it's actually called The Judge. And so The Time Wealthy Investor was a 280-page book. Very well, I mean, it was very well written. There was definitely mistakes in there that I saw after a while, and I was like, okay, I got to fix the mistakes, and I need to update it. So that's the third book that I wrote, which is the Time Wealthy Investor 2.0, which had some updates in there, and it also had I fixed some errors in there, some formatting mistakes and things like that. But The Judge was really written as just kind of like a novella. It was a 90-page book. It had some really good lessons in there, but it was written for specifically and written as a story. It was meant for people to read on a flight. It was meant, something where people, or like a long bathroom break even, but it was meant to be read in one sitting. And it was larger type font. It was easy for people to read. It followed the Christmas a Christmas story, with the three ghosts. It followed that kind of theme. So that was where I started to write, and I really leaned into the different breadths of types of books that I could write. That my fourth book, which was published just last year, The Time Wealthy Advantage, that's the book over my shoulder here, and that's the blue book on the pile. That's a 300-page book, and that was all around the Viper methodology, around not specifically for real estate people, but really for business owners. And that was really where I started to get. Sorry, Jake, can give you all sorts of airtime there. But the blue book, The Time Wealthy Advantage, which is the next book I'll show you here in just a second. But those 4 guides at the bottom are just 40-page guides. So I have all sorts of different books that I have written, and from 280 page to 300 pages to 90-page novella, which was it was one big story. And then these 4 guides, these supplement guides, the strategic one sheets, the accounting guides, the sales guides, and the lead generation guide, that really all supplements the Time Wealthy Advantage book. Excuse me. So I'm just letting you know this, not to impress you or anything along those lines, but to let you know that you don't have to be pigeonholed into one specific thing, into one specific area. And right now I'm even writing my next book, which is called The Time Wealthy Leader Boss. And Leader Boss is really about the leadership, the leadership challenge that business owners often have, especially when they have employees. So these are the sorts of things that we're running into. And I just want to let you know that I don't want you to feel like your book has to be a certain way. It's whatever way that you want. Just make sure it's readable. Just make sure that the people, that your avatar that you're directing this towards, are actually going to want to read that book. So this is my book, my last big book, if you will, which is The Time Wealthy Advantage. And that's the 300-page book that I wrote in published last year. So I just letting you know, again, if you're interested in a copy, you can find it on Amazon. If you're in the US, you can go to strategicboardroom.com and get a copy of it there. But again, I'm not here to promote that. So let's talk about the why. I do have a couple of people on here real quick. Kara, I do love pen and paper. I enjoy writing with a good pen. Oh, I know. I'm actually a kind of a nerd for these gel pens, the Pilot. Right? 0.7 has to be 0.7. Like if it's 1.0, it's just too big, right? 0.5 is too sharp. Yeah, I know. I'm a total nerd for that. Let's see. I've got okay, sir, I am from India and I'm also a student. Sir, can you tell me what I should focus on more so that I can, any skill that I should learn? If you're looking to write and publish a book, this is exactly what we're going to be talking about today in terms of the individual skills. And especially, and the one thing that I really like about this, we'll talk about this here in a little bit, but the main thing about this is really trying to find the why you are writing this. And I'm going to get to this here in just a second. But if you're really trying to write a book, one of the main reasons is because it really demonstrates authority. And again, like I have written and published 8 different books. And the reason why I choose to self-publish is because I maintain a lot of control and because I'm able to demonstrate that authority by offering the book. Like I can offer the book directly through my website. I don't have to rely on Amazon fulfillment to do that. Now, as many of you may have realized, there are people from Australia, from Sydney, hello and welcome, from down under, all the way to the other side of the equator, to the other side of the world, and here in the United States. I've got people in Washington and Virginia, or Kentucky, here in the Midwest. I'm in Indiana, all the way to the UK, right? And on the other side, and people in India. So literally all around the world here, we've got people joining on this call, okay? And I'm going to be able to demonstrate authority just by the simple of the fact that I'm an author. So there's a real value to being an author. There's a real value, especially if you have a business that you're trying to promote. But the thing is, you got to provide value. This book that's over my shoulder here, The Time Wealthy Advantage, it is not a book about selling my stuff. It's a really, really valuable book. I mean, people could buy this book and get everything they need from me. Or if they want additional stuff, then they can hire me directly as a strategist. But I'm just saying, don't use the book yes, you want to use the book to demonstrate your authority, but don't use the book to sell the entire time. Really make sure that you're providing value. It drives me absolutely bananas. And let me know, have you ever read a book where you felt like it was just one big giant brochure? Like where all the author did was sell to you the entire time? I'm not going to mention any names, but that drives me absolutely nuts. If you've got an offer at the end and you want to if you want to reference the offer, the author, I'm sorry, if you want to reference the offer along the way, fine. I don't have a problem with that. But don't sell to me the entire time. Like, hey, when you work with me, this is when I'm going to give you the answer to X, Y, and Z. That drives me crazy, right? That all I feel like I'm doing is reading a brochure. Yes, absolutely, Crystal. It's so ridiculous. Like, come on, like we're adults here. Yeah, thank you, Janice. I appreciate it. And yes, Crystal, you will absolutely get the recording. If you signed up through Eventbrite, you will get that. So Eva is answering. So how does it work? Is it that you find a publisher first and wait for them to be either interested or not, or do you prefer to publish the book yourself? What do you recommend for a first-time writer? So Eva, again, it's going to depend. So the reason why I'm going to take that down just because it's a lot to write. It's in the way. I prefer to self-publish. And the reason why I prefer to self-publish is because I have a business. When I wrote my first book, I had a book called The Time Wealthy Investor. I also had a brand that I created called Landlord Coach. So I was trying to work with individual landlords and property managers and help them put their systems and processes in place so they could be more time wealthy. Okay. So because I had a brand, because I had a business that was really where I was making the bulk of my money, I didn't have a problem with that approach because the book really helped me demonstrate authority. And people were like, wow, this is actually a really good book. I'm like, cool. If you like the book, let's talk. And we could, work that through. And I really wasn't making a lot of money in book sales, but I was making a lot of money on the back end. And the other thing was because the information that I had that I consider proprietary, it was my information. This was my methodology. In that book, I talked about something called the VIP method, Vision, Infrastructure, Process. That was all of my stuff. I did not want to give up any intellectual rights to that information. The next book, which was the fourth book, The Time Wealthy Advantage, which was the blue book over my shoulder, that I expanded the VIP method into the Viper methodology, Vision, Infrastructure, Process, Execution, Reporting. That was really directed towards the small business owner. I wrote that book when I decided to walk away from landlordcoach.com and start strategicboardroom.com. Strategic Boardroom is, again, I just niched up. I kind of left the real estate business owner behind and I still work with them. I mean, still people come to me for real estate stuff, but now I really like working with small business owners who have less than 20 employees. They generally tend to be married. They generally tend to have children at home, that sort of thing, right? So I'm letting you know, I like to maintain control over those things. If you're literally just looking to write books and publish books and get them out to millions of people, then a traditional publisher might be for you. Generally, and from my understanding, you're going to want an agent. You going direct to publisher. I'm not saying you can't do that, but I'm telling you, if you're trying to find a publisher like HarperCollins, who I've had conversations with publishers that big, or Forbes, you can go direct to publisher, but it is tremendously easier if you find an agent. So my recommendation, if you're really looking to not after today, you can make the decision on your own. If you choose to self-publish, I'm going to be talking about that angle. And that is what a lot of my course is about self-publishing. If you really truly are looking to publish go traditional route with traditional publishing, you would be much better off with an agent. So I'm just letting you know. And you can find agents. They're not hard to find. Trust me, they are wanting to talk to you. So hopefully that is helpful for you from that point. Crystal is saying that is a great point. Yes. And I have no idea what you mean. but I'm going to agree with you. So sorry, Crystal, I'm not sure what you mean. But all right. So yeah, when you use like words like that, I don't know, because a lot of times I'm just kind of streaming and spilling. But yeah, I'm going to totally agree. If it was a point that I made, absolutely. I think it was a great point. All right. So let's talk about the why. In terms of so yes, you are more than welcome, Eva. All right. So I'm going to answer this one question, then I'm going to. So, Mark, did you trademark any of your book content? How does that work? So, trademark, I did not actually trademark anything. A trademark, I didn't really see any benefit to going through the trademark process. Again, I will fully admit that I'm a little bit. If you ask a trademark attorney, you should absolutely trademark everything, right? Because that's what they do. That's how they get paid. I did not trademark anything specifically just because copy by the mere act of publishing something, that's your copyright, right? I looked at it from the benefit versus like the cost benefit analysis. If someone like wants to try to steal something from me, like the Viper framework is something that I have been talking about literally for the last 7 years. They're really going to have a hard time convincing anybody that it's theirs, okay? Because it's obviously my thing. But I come up with so much new content that if they want to try to steal from me, fine. Like, okay, good luck. But they're going to have a hard time keeping up with me because I come up with so much extra content. So really, I'm not worried about copywriting, that sort of thing, because realistically, there's so much infringement that's going on for me to try to actually enforce that and get a trademark attorney and enforce that sort of thing. To me, it's just the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Should you look into it for your thing if it's really that proprietary? Absolutely. But it would take a trademark attorney who knows those specific things. So trademark would be more around like if I had like the strategic boardroom logo or something along those lines, I think, but you might be confusing copywriting and trademarks. I will fully admit I am not well versed in that, but I did look into it. And to be honest with you, like I said, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze to try to enforce that sort of thing. Okay. So we're gonna move on, but guys, keep the questions coming because I will come up with some natural breakpoints again to have conversation around these things. So let's talk about the Viper framework. So we're talking specifically around the why. Now the why, just let me get into the Viper framework so I can just tell you what this is as a business owner so you guys can apply this for your own stuff, right? For your own business. The Viper framework is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. So when in your strategic journey through your business is going to happen in this specific order. So I do want to talk specifically around vision. Vision is specifically where you want to go. It's broken down into two main components. It's broken down into personal vision and into business vision. Personal vision specifically is about, again, where do you want to go? I'm Harshu, where do you want to go? Eva, where do you want to go? Prashant, where do you want to go in your life? Crystal, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your relationships to look like? Janice, what do you want your relationships to look like in your life? Well, like, what do you want your marriage to look like? Your relationship with your children to look like? What do you want your relationship with your friends to look like? Like, these are the sorts of things that you need to define in your personal vision. And it gets like people go, well, what's your why? Listen, I get why people say that because of, obviously define your why. You're like, what's your why? But I really want to say that personal vision is, it's much more personal than just what's your why. Like my why, yeah, like my daughter, my wife, my kids, right? But specifically, what's my vision? What's my vision for them? What's my vision with my relationship look like? Like when my bride and I were having real struggles in our marriage, I finally went back to her and I said, look, I wrote it all out on an index card. I said, sweetheart, this is my vision for what I want our marriage to look like. And that, do you have a vision for what you want your relationship to be with me? And she says, yeah, it's similar to that. So she wrote something out. And when we started getting really clear about what we wanted our vision to look like, now at least we knew we shared a set of core values. We'll talk about that here in a second. But what I'm saying is, this is where you have to get really clear about what is your personal vision. So if you want to be a writer, then be a writer. If you want to be a business owner who also writes, then fine. But make sure, again, what does your personal vision look like? And then you're going to come up with a business vision that's going to define That's going to say like your personal vision is like, okay, cool. Where do you want to go? Your business vision is like, great. How are we going to get there? So you're going to reverse engineer a business vision that delivers that personal vision for you. You know, it's interesting. I sit in many masterminds and again, conferences throughout my life. And I have sat next to people who are legitimately making 6 and 7 figures a month net. Like that's take home. And their lives at home were a disaster. And you know what they were more worried about? Making more money, making that extra comma in their bank account. That's the thing that they were worried about. And the reason for that is because they had created a business vision without giving any consideration to a personal vision. And the danger in creating a business vision before creating a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. Now, I'm not saying that business vision is irrelevant. It just can't come first. So please take the time. Just right now, you know, at some point, say, okay, great. What are some of the things that we're going to look forward to? What are some of the things that you want out of your life? And let that be the thing that dictates and helps drive your writing and helps drive your business. Does that make sense? So when you're thinking about, at the end, there's 3 C's of business vision. Those 3 C's, and I'm going to reveal these 3 C's here in just a second. But when you're thinking about the 3 C's, I want you to think about this in the context of your business. Again, you're a business author. So if you're writing a business book, it's the same thing for these 3 C's. Anytime I get hired as a strategist, anytime I get brought in as a CSO, a fractional chief strategic officer, and I'm working with the C-suite of individuals in that organization, I'm looking at these 3 things specifically. And anytime an organization is struggling, they might be struggling with getting new clients. They might be struggling for profitability. They might be struggling with bad company culture, something. If they're struggling, it's in one of these 3 areas. And sometimes it's in all 3 of these areas. But these 3 C's are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Core purpose, core values, and client avatar. And by the way, the same thing applies for your book vision. You have to have a core purpose, you have to have defined core values, and you have to have a very clear client avatar. So let me just one hot second here because something is going on wonky with my screen. And I want to make sure. Okay. So, yep. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So when we're talking about core purpose is specifically what business are you in and what problems do you solve? What business are you in and what problems do you solve? This is going to be really important when you're thinking about your book vision. Like, what is the book specifically going to do? What is it for? Who is it for? And when you're thinking about the core purpose, you have to be really clear about what it is and almost what it's not. Is it going to be entertaining? Is it going to be inspirational? What's it for? What's the core purpose? What's the core purpose of your business? And you have to be really specific around that. When you're talking about your core values of your business, just like the core values of your book, they have to be in alignment. So it's not like you would write, let's say that your faith was very important to you. Okay. And so you're like, you're a Christian and you're like, okay, so I'm a Christian and it's really important to me in my business. And you write a book that is like full of, like really, not flattering language. We'll just use it that way, right? Does that make sense? No, the core purposes, the core values don't align. The core values would be misaligned. So I'm not trust and know, like I'm a Marine, so I trust and know, like I work in profanity, like an artist works in clay. But I'm just saying, I get it. Like you cannot put a book out there with a bunch of foul language that's going to turn away others who may share your core values. So what I'm saying is your core values, they're defined by you. Your core values, again, the core values of your business are just simply an extension of your core values personally, because your business is just an extension of you, just like your book is just an extension of you. Have you ever read a book from an author and you close the book and you go, man, I really feel like I've got a good understanding of who that person is now? Yeah, that's because they're putting their heart and their soul into that business or into that book. This is the same way, like when I have people who have ghost written or have had books ghost written and I knew them and I read those books, I'm like, that doesn't sound like you, right? Like, really? I don't know. I thought they did a good job. Like, oh, that makes sense. You didn't write this. You had someone write it for you. They're like, yeah, I thought they did a good job. Okay, well, that may be true, but I'm just saying, like, That's why it doesn't always sound like you. My books are written in my voice. They are my voice. They are my, like people say after they've got done reading, like I can hear you saying those words because they are my words. So when you're defining your core values, I just want you to understand this. You might be thinking, well, what does this have to do with books? Because it has everything to do with books. If you're not defining your core values in your business, just like you're not defining your core value in the book that you're going to write, I'm telling you, it's going to be wonky. And the core values are what's experienced by the people in your organization. The core values are what's experienced by the people that are working within your organization. The core values are also help determining company culture, and the company culture and the company brand are inextricably linked. So that's why I'm saying if you don't take the time to define your core values, you're taking the time to just say, okay, well, how do you define your core values? I'll give you a good example. So let's say for argument's sake that, Eva is saying, okay, hey, she breaks into my house and she steals my peanut M&Ms. I value peanut M&Ms. Am I going to go to war over peanut M&Ms? No, I'm not, right? So I'm going to say, Eva, take my peanut M&Ms, right? So I know something is a core value when I'm willing to take action on something. Let me ask you something, okay? So for everybody that's here, I want you to think about something. You can put it in the comments section if you want. Have you ever had a friend where they were heading down a path that you couldn't follow and you had to let them go as a friend? Have you ever had a significant other? It might have been a romantic relationship that you had to break off because they were heading down a path that you couldn't follow. They were violating a core value of yours. Does that make sense? Has anybody had something like that happen? Yeah, we all have. If you live life for more than 15 seconds, yeah, Jake is saying too many times to count. And the reason why, Jake, is because you probably live your life with a set of core values that you probably haven't defined. But the reason why you let those people go is because they were not in alignment with a core value of yours. So that's where you have to let someone go because there was a violation. Think of another aspect of where you have a core value that might be like an event you would love to replay if you could. If you could reenact that, you would love to do that. So like think of that core value. So that's how you determine your core values. So again, think about that and how that could apply not only to your business, but also to your book. Right? So that starts to help you think, okay, what kind of language are you going to use? What kind of verbiage are you going to use? What kind of sense of humor are you going to use? I put my humor into my books because that's generally how I talk. That's generally who I am. All right. So, and Clarissa, yeah, your brother. Yeah. For me, it was my one sister. I have a wonderful relationship with one sister. I don't have any relationship with my other. And you know why? Because she doesn't align with my core values, and that's okay. She's just a different person, okay? I wish her well, but I don't pursue a relationship with her because she does nothing but frustrate me. She violates core values of mine that we just don't share, okay? And Janice saying her brother. Yeah, same thing. It's the way it is. Eva, I'm going to come back to your question in just 1 second. So the last piece here is the client avatar, and that is who you are writing it for. The client avatar, you have to have a client avatar for your business, and you have to think about who that person is. Think about them geographically and demographically and psychographically. Geographics is straightforward, it's where they are. But like for me, I've written most of my books for people in the United States. Have people outside the United States purchased my books? Yeah, they have. And have they found value in them? Yeah, they have. Even though I wrote it for an audience inside the US. But for people who are in demographics, the demographics is obviously everybody understands demographics, but are they old? Are they young? Are they single? Are they married? Do they have kids? Do they have no kids? Those sorts of things. And then finally, the psychographics is how they think and how they buy. So when you understand their attitudes and their lifestyles and their interests and their goals in life, that is where you really know your avatar. So I want you to start thinking about that person that's sitting there literally holding the book. You're writing to that person. That's the person I want you to be thinking about when you're writing your book. Okay. And that comes to the crux of the why. Okay. Let me take a sip here, and Eva's got a question. Um, so Eva's got a question. When it comes to publishing, if you're looking for an agent, how can you be careful enough for them not to steal your work or go behind your back in any way? Um, I mean, there are non-disclosure agreements for sure, but you got to keep in mind, Eva. I mean, these people are like you're the one doing the work, right? So they're not going to be the ones trying to take and write your manuscript. um these are people who are advocating for you, so if you feel that strongly about it, then have them sign a non-disclosure agreement. Okay. I understand your caution there, I really do, because you may have a really good, cool thing to do, but again, you can eliminate that by self-publishing, and that's why I like self-publishing too, because I don't have to worry about someone stealing my ideas. But I also don't worry about that much. All right, so let's talk about the where. So all of the wheres, like where, we're going to talk about where are you going to write. That's probably the biggest where. And where you're going to write, here's the one thing that I would recommend right here. We're not going to spend a ton of time on the actual mechanics of writing, but I want you to think about where you're going to write, and I want you to ask you, when do you have the best energy of the day? I want you, and this is for some people, it's late at night. For me, I am not. If I'm up late, a lot of time it's because I'm engaging in sleep procrastination. I'm finding things to keep me from sleeping. And that is not the same thing as my best energy. My best energy of the day is early in the morning, provided I've had enough rest. So if I go to bed at 9 and I wake up at 4, I am on fire. I love that time of day. I absolutely love that time of day, and that is absolutely when I do my best writing. But I want you to try to place yourself away from distractions, because I will tell you, when you are, when you are in a distraction zone, it's amazing how much cleaning you suddenly want to get down. You want to what you want to get done as soon as you start to sit down and start writing, right? Oh, hey, the toilet, the tub needs cleaning, and the toilet needs cleaning, and oh, this toilet needs cleaning, and maybe I'll just go for a run, right? Maybe I'll go skipping down the road, right? That's what I'm saying. You have to get yourself in a distraction-free environment. But keep in mind, for those, where are my ADHD brothers and sisters out there? Brethren and sistren, where are you at? Okay, I know you're out there. Okay, here's what I know that you are out there, and I am. If I had 3 hands, I'd put them all up. Listen, I understand how hard it can be to really dial in, but I'm also going to tell you some of it, not all of it. Absolutely, there is a. I'm not suggesting that ADHD is not a real thing. It is absolutely a real thing. But we don't help ourselves a lot very often, is that we find reasons to keep phones and distractions and things going on. And some of you right now are multitasking. You know how I know? Because I see everything. I'm kidding. But I'm just saying, you're like, wow, he's like Santa Claus. No, yeah, exactly, Janice. And let's see, Esiosa. Yeah, absolutely. These are the sorts of things that you have to recognize, that when you've got distractions around you, you have to, a lot of times we have trained our brains to look for other things to distract us from the things that we're doing. Sometimes it just means like, hey, look, I'm going to set a timer for 11 minutes and I'm not going to deviate from that until 11 minutes. And that's how you start to train your brain and say, look, after 11 minutes, I'll give myself a 5-minute or 10-minute, I can do whatever I want. And then I get back to work for 11 minutes. That 11 minutes on, 10 minutes off, 11 minutes on, 10 minutes off. Man, I have gotten so much writing done in those periods of time. A lot of times I'm ready to continue. Once I get to the 11 minutes, I'm ready to keep on going. I'll keep on going. I generally I do get tired though, just because of the writing that I'm doing. So a lot of times I will do that. But again, keep in mind, sometimes too, for those of us who are really distractible, a lot of times I'll go to the opposite end of the spectrum. I'll find a really, really, really busy place, and it forces me to focus because there's so much busyness going on. I did that one time in a very busy restaurant, and I was able, because the restaurant was so busy and all the clanking and the clattering and the glasses and this and that, because it was so busy, I was not able to focus on any one thing. So it kind of put me in like this massively overstimulated chamber where focusing in was actually helpful for me. So, good night, sir. And you are, thank you for sticking around today. Yeah. Okay. So, yep. Very good. Um, Clarissa's putting her hand up. Exactly. Um, so Robert, man, you have really crushed it. As a self-publishing author of 20 books so far, I definitely concur with you. I advise people to commit for a season to get the book done. I would agree with that, Robert. And I will also tell you too that I did that for committing to a season. And sometimes I recognize that it still wasn't the right season. I remember doing this with the Time Wealthy Advantage, and I was really trying to force and get the book done, and it was like pushing a rope. And I was just like, man, I'm just not getting this thing done. But when I did commit and I was ready, I kind of put it in the mental crock pot. Like right now, Leader Boss is in the mental crock pot. And sometimes the crock pot's a couple months, sometimes it's a couple of long months, right? Right, not years, but it could take that long. But I do try to write a little bit every so often. Like I try to keep moving and keeping that, sometimes just formatting and moving stuff around. But man, if you've done 24 books, that is amazing, Robert. Absolutely. You should, why am I here? You should be doing this. So congratulations to you on your success, Robert. That's amazing. Thank you for joining me today. I'm absolutely humbled. I've never had anybody on my session here with that many books. You are way ahead of me. Good for you. So I also want you to think about where you're going to, again, where you're going to write, when's your best energy of the day, and I also want you to think about a place that is just for writing versus writing and paying your bills and taking a poop, right? Like this is where I want you to make sure that you're staging that environment. Okay. That's where one of the things that I really like to do is I'll listen to music with no lyrics. Jazz is a big thing for me. I like piano. But another thing that I really like is the sound of the sound of city, right? The sound of like a cityscape. If you go on, there's one for Manhattan, and all it is the cars honking and the noise and the backups and the ambulances and all of the sounds that, like, you can hear conversations, but you can't hear any one conversation because there's so many conversations going on. That's the sort of thing that, again, for me is really helpful because it's so distracting that I tend to focus. Sometimes if it's really heavy cognitive work, sometimes it has to be complete dead silence, and I will put on a set of headphones that blocks everything else out. So whatever it is, just try it. Just again, sometimes it's a combination of things, but sometimes you'll just listen to your body and you will be able to write when you can write. Let's see here. Jake is saying Lofi Girl or Jazz at Night on YouTube. Excellent. I like that. Yeah, I use mine on YouTube. The only problem I have with YouTube though is sometimes they interrupt with commercials, and that's kind of annoying. But there are some that I don't think I think like the Yule log ones, they don't have any like Christmas music songs, right? But anyway, you can find some that don't have they have very few or limited interruptions. So again, where are you going to write? And also, I want you to think about, where are you going to save it? I know that sounds really crazy, but I'm telling you this, as sure as God made little green apples, you're going to be like done. And you're like, oh my gosh, my book is done. I'm ready to submit it, get it uploaded or wherever. And your computer will die and explode and catch fire all at the same time. And you have not saved it. Okay. So what I'm saying is save it, back up your backups. If you have Carbonite, fine. Back it up with a thumb drive. Just make sure that you know and how you're managing your conflicted copies. So what I would do as I'm working on my books is I would save it with the date of that book. So in other words, if I knew like today's in mid-February, I would put today's date in mid-February, but from 2 days ago, I would have that copy. So in other words, if it got corrupted, the worst thing I lost was 2 days worth of work. So I just want you to make sure that you're keeping that and keeping that safe. Like keep one in your pocket and then keep one on your laptop. And then of course, back it up to Carbonite. Belt, suspenders, and padlocks. Like I'm just making sure, because you don't want to lose all this stuff. However you're doing it, again, if you want to keep and risk it and put it all on Google Sheets, fine. But just make sure you have a backup. So in case you lose the account or it gets hacked or something, make sure you have an ability to do that. So I just want you to think that you're thinking of all the wheres. I also want you to think where you're going to capture your ideas. I will tell you this. When do you come up with all these ideas, especially business ideas? When you're standing in the shower, right? It's never anywhere convenient. No, it's usually when you're driving down the interstate at like 50 miles an hour or 100 clicks an hour or whatever, and you're driving and you're like, oh man, I want you to think again. I like to put them on. Sometimes I will do voice notes on my phone, and sometimes I will just do regular notes in a section, but it's specific to that book. So I'll create a whole new folder just for that book, and I keep and maintain all of the different things within those notes. So however you're doing it, because you may not always have access to your laptop or to your computer when you get this idea, but make sure you capture that idea immediately. Because again, scientists have figured out you have about 37 seconds to capture that idea or it's gone forever. So make sure you have a mechanism to capture that when you're standing in the shower or doing other things. So this is where I want to make sure, I just want to make sure that you're thinking about where you're going to capture these ideas, and then make sure you get those ideas from your phone to the actual manuscript when you're actually writing these things. All right. Clarissa is asking a question. I know it probably depends on so many things, but about how long per book? Okay. So again, this goes back to the core purpose. It goes back to the core purpose. What's the purpose of the book? I know a lot of people, again, I wrote 4 40-ish page guides. And you know what the purpose of those guides were? They really were as supplements to the Time Wealthy Advantage. They were not meant to be standalone books. They were meant to be guides to help augment everything that was learned in the Time Wealthy Advantage. So could people buy those books online one at a time? Sure, if they want to, right? But the real value is when they get them all together. So you have to think about how long. It really comes back down to the purpose of your book. And I would also say, look, if you're going to be writing this, is it really meant to be like, hey, I want to give some really good information in a really short period of time? Is it to entertain? Is it to to be entertaining and also provide some really good information? That's what The Judge was for me. That was a 93-page book, I think. It was 90 something, but it was a 90-page book, and it was all story. It was all story about a guy who was trying to work his job and also manage his rental properties while he was at work. And it just didn't work out very well for him. And of course, he had this judge visit him, which was, not of this world. It was actually kind of a fun story. But I just want to let you know, like, don't get too hung up on the length. Just make sure that the point of the book is as long as it needs to be, but no longer. Okay? So that's a really cool, that's a great question. Yes, and I knew someone was going to ask that question. Is there a reason why you did not include the content of the guides into the Time Wealthy Advantage? To have the story and the guides as one book? Yes, because the book would have been way too long. Here's the difference. In the guides, I can just put the information out there as the guides, okay? And when I'm selling them, I'm actually selling them, and people are getting 5 books when they get the strategic black box. So this comes into marketing and promotion. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But the reason why people generally don't read much past the first chapter of a book anyway, but I have a real creative way to kind of keep things going in my writing. Well, the thing was, when I was looking at these guides, if I'm just putting the information in the guides, I didn't have to have a build up. I didn't have to have I didn't have to shift the context, because the context was in that guide by itself. It was all about lead generation. It was all about the sales process. It was all about the accounting function. It was all and only about the strategic one sheets. The context I did in like half a paragraph in the front, because that's all it was about. And it really was supposed to support everything within the books. So there's a couple of reasons why I did that. The reason why is because, again, I'm selling them, as an offer, as a, right now I've got, okay, cool, you can have the book and you get the 4 guides on top of that as a bonus, right? So now people are like, oh, wow, that's a really good deal. Makes sense? So they're actually getting the book plus the 4 guides. And a lot of times people are just going to read the shorter guides, and they're going to realize that they really need to read the longer book. So again, there was a lot of different reasons for it, but that's the reason why I did that. Because again, if you got to keep in mind, it was a 300-page book already. Do you think they were going to read a 420 page book? Yeah, right. Or no, that'd be 460 pages because each one was 40 pages. So probably not, right? So that'd have been almost a 500 page book. It just wouldn't have been read. So you gotta keep in mind everything matters. Like the size of the book, the weight of the book, everything matters. So it's a really, really good question. All right, Tanya, all good. I understand. And you will be getting a copy of the replay here in a little bit. All right. So think about, Clarissa is saying, that makes sense. Thank you. Another thing that stops me from even starting is the fear of the editing process. Well, and we're going to talk about that. So the editing process, the way that, and again, hiring a good editor, they are worth their weight in rhodium. And you can also self-edit, but you should not self-edit and write the book at the same time. People who try to edit as they go end up never finishing a book. So I just letting you know, I don't tend to edit my own books. But I do have a kind of a cheap man's way of doing that. And I'll just go ahead and tell you now, the way that I do that is by narrating my books, and I will read them out loud. And when I'm narrating my book, I will catch 98% of any sort of wonkiness within a sentence or any misspellings or things like that, especially if I'm reading it out loud and I'm trying to narrate it. So that's kind of a cheap man's way to do that. But yeah, don't let that fear get in your way, Clarissa. All right, so let's keep rolling. You guys have really good questions. So let's talk about the writing. So when you're actually doing the writing, decide a pace and rhythm in advance and try to get a sense of the length of the chapters in advance. And then you'll start to get a sense of how long the book is going to be in advance. So again, start thinking like, okay, generally my chapters, if I'm remembering right, the last book was The Time Wealth, the Advantage. Those were genuinely around 2,200 words per chapter. Okay. So that put the chapters, I'm trying to remember here now, around 10 to 14 pages, something like that, depending on the formatting and so forth, because I had the different graphics and so forth. But that was about right. So I just want you to think about this, define this stuff up in advance, and it makes it a lot easier when you're actually writing. Decide on your point before you start. Decide on the point of the book before you start, and decide on the point of a chapter before you start. Don't just wander in your writing. That will make it miserable for everybody. And sometimes you just have to look at a paragraph and go, does this paragraph even, would anything be missed if I deleted that paragraph? And a lot of times when you're going through the editing process, it's more about taking stuff out than putting stuff in. I would rather have more there to cut away than try to beef something up. I don't know if you ever read a book that would be like, wow, this would have made a great email, right? Or this would have made a great pamphlet, not a book, or a great article. Decide on language. When you're deciding on language, I want you to think of are you writing formally versus informally? Are you swearing versus being polite? Are you being really super technical, or are you telling a story? Are you writing in phonetics where you have a southern drawl or a British accent? And if so, how are you going to write that? Are you going to write it in the phonics that they speak in, or are you going to write it, and just describe the language? So again, how are you going to determine this? And again, it should be determined by your avatar. And it's also important that you decide an accountability partner in advance. And a lot of times people will want to hire me just as an accountability partner. And again, I'm usually too expensive for something like that. But you can find an accountability partner, preferably someone who you're not married to, would be my suggestion. But find someone who's really going to hold you accountable and say, okay, cool. And if you don't do this, what is that going to mean? What are you actually going to do if you don't follow through on this? So this is important for you to do this stuff now. As you're writing, I just want to put this up there. 99.4% of people will not finish a book that they start writing, according to a statistic I made up. And I know that is a made up statistic, but you're probably going, yep, I'm part of that 99.4%. Well, listen, Robert, he's written 24 books. My gosh, I've got a lot of catching up to do. He's 3 times ahead of me, right? I don't know that I'm ever going to write that many books. That's a prolific writer right there. But I'm just saying, just make sure that you have someone to help hold you accountable so you can actually do this and get into that rhythm of writing every day, even when you don't feel like writing. And that's why right now I've given myself permission to let my book settle in the mental crockpot. That is an absolute real thing. You have to kind of let it settle. And then I'll get to the other side when I'm going to finish up Leader Boss. I've already got the cover designed. I'm ready to go. And that's the thing. So the other thing is make sure that you stay organized as best you can. Trying to wander around in your thoughts where you're writing a little bit about this, then you come back to it and you're writing it about it again. That's really, really, or that's very frustrating for the reader. Stay organized in your thoughts using index cards. That's old school, but you can also use mind mapping software. Something like MindMup or MindMeister. MindMup is only like $25 a year. And it really, what that does is it kind of creates like a node, like a central node, and all these sub nodes and sister nodes off of them. It's really cool. But honestly, index cards is kind of the old school way to do it, just like you did when you were like, putting it together a project. You can use the same thing. I still use note cards, and I have this massive conference table in my conference room over here, and that's what a lot of times if I'm putting a course together, or if I'm putting together a book or whatever it is, I'm still organizing my thoughts, and I'll still utilize that the index card system. So the other thing is you want to think about future pacing and callbacks are what make writing interesting. I've done that a couple of times here today where I say, hey, in a little bit we're going to talk about X. But you do the same thing, and that's also what makes writing very interesting. So you can say like, when you're talking about future pacing and callbacks, you're talking about, hey, as discussed in chapter X, right? This is something that refers to something before or something that you're going to write about soon. But the way that I do this, the way that I keep track of this, is I will actually highlight and put a highlight mark on that reference. That way, when I'm going through the editing process, I make sure that it's actually that I did reference that thing in that chapter. Because there's nothing worse than them saying, oh, remember that, I'm going to talk about this, and you never talk about it. That's super aggravating, right? Because people are looking forward to it, and you are now a liar, okay? So I just want to make sure that if you're doing that, if you're going to make, future pacing, like, hey, this is what we're going to talk about in the future, make sure that you highlight that, and make sure that you skip down and go, hey, I mentioned in chapter 7 that I had to talk about X, and then come back and then finish your thought. Okay, but it makes writing very, very interesting when you're doing that sort of thing. The other thing, again, is about staying organized, but also make sure that when you're doing citations and resources, make sure that you're using those, like just pick one. If you're going to do footnotes at the end of a chapter, which is, weird because no one does that anymore, but really, like, again, right now I'm learning APA 7, which is the way that people who are insane choose to do their citations now. Oh my gosh, it is an absolute, it's a lot. Basically, it's a very specific way of doing citations for someone else's work. Okay, make sure you're making these things very clear in terms of whose work you're citing. I actually cite a ton of authors in my last book, and I do it within the narrative. But then at the end, I will just mention the book. I will say, hey, these are the books that I have referenced in my writings. That I don't actually go into specific citations of the APA 7 guidelines. I'm just not doing that. But I always do want to make sure that I'm making a point of giving the authors their due. I don't want to ever look like I'm stealing someone else's work or not referencing it. Not to mention, I mean, everybody's doing it. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Just make sure you're citing it. Just make sure you're telling people that you're telling people where you got that information. Let's see. I've got a couple questions here. Let's see. Crystal is saying, I have a guide practical focus book. And I realize that a lot of my delay in moving forward has been in making sure that the guides seamlessly blend with the book. I would say just make sure. I'm not really sure that your question here is, Crystal, but yeah, I get that. That's also, if you're, just make sure that during that you're highlighting it, and then during the edit, just make sure it's referenced. That's all. That way it's not holding you back. So, Clarissa says, thanks so much. You are more than welcome. Kara, I carry index cards in my purse. Yeah, I have a whole pile over here. Actually, I love index cards. They are my friend. 3x5. Robert, I knew that was going to get you. APA. I'm in a doctoral program, and yes, APA overrated. Yeah, absolutely. I'm in a doctoral program as well, Robert. I'm in IO psychology right now, and APA 7 is not my friend. And oh my gosh, yeah, it is ridiculous. Ava, gotta love APA. Do you though? Do you really have to love it? I think everyone just loves to hate it. Anyway, that's citations and resources. Use of writer's notes. Writer's notes is what this is. They're temporary notes in the middle of a paragraph or in the middle of a chapter that you'll say, hey, this is the direction I want to go in, and in future chapters. And sometimes you just keep them in there, and you might write them in bold, you might highlight them, but uses of writer's notes, it kind of gives you direction along the way. It's kind of like mapping something out, like, hey, in chapter 7, I want to make sure I make this point. In chapter 9, I want to make sure I make this point, right? So make sure, use the writer's notes along the way. Again, you would delete them at the end during the editing process. And then writing is a craft. I just want to put this out there. These are 3 books that I have heard. I read 2 of them. I have not read the 3rd one yet. But Bird by Anne Lamott, she is an absolute, she's a hoot. She's something else. And she is definitely not everybody's flavor of tea, but I really like her. But she wrote Bird by Bird. It's a pretty old book now. I think she actually published it maybe in the 80s, if I had to guess. Stephen King on writing. I am not a fan of Stephen King's genre. I'm way too kinesthetic. Like, I'm way too empathic. Would be way too absorbed in the books like that, so I can't read books like that. But he wrote a book about the craft of writing, and it is really funny. I actually listened to it on Audible. Really gave some good advice about writing. There's another book called from someone who actually was my editor, and she recommended this book to me on Writing Well by William Zinsser. I have not read that book, but since she is absolutely telling me it's a book that I need to read, I would recommend it strongly. So one other quick thing that I would suggest, in addition to these 3 books, learn to include story and and bringing in story. I really like bringing this in, and what keeps people driving forward is curiosity. And what is the thing that creates curiosity? It's when you don't tell the whole story. Make sense? So if I said, hey, have I ever told you about the time when I was driving down the interstate and I hit a deer? And you're like, oh my gosh, no, what happened? Right? Well, hang on a second. I'll tell you that in a second. Well, my friends and I were getting ready. See what I did? I didn't go right into the end of the story. I'm like building it back up by going, hey, there's the hook. And I'm like, okay. Right now, it's got to be something that's interesting to the person, right? Like, oh, well, what happened to the deer? Did you damage the car? Did you get hurt? Right? Like what? Like, there's lots of questions. That's what creates curiosity. Is when people you opened a story and now they're waiting for the end. So you haven't told them the whole story. That's what creates curiosity. Okay. So what I did in the Time Wealthy Advantage, for those of you who haven't read it, is I started by telling a story about a couple. Now, who's my avatar? Right? My avatar are married couples. So I started by telling a story of a married couple who were in business for themselves. Okay? And they were in divorce court. They were wondering how they got there. The guy was waiting, right? Then the door opens, right? Woman walks in, won't make eye contact. They were mad. What was going on? What happened? And then it flashes back. It starts when they were in high school and he went to the military and she went to college and blah, 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 right? So now you're like, oh man, what happened to this? What happened to this couple, right? Why are they there? Right? So that's how I got people hooked into that part of the book. But trust and know it was all so I could get them and deliver the little bits of medicine along the way about the Viper framework. Vision, then infrastructure, then process, then execution, then reporting. And then finally at the end, I landed the plane, put the fries in the bag, and you'll have to read the book for yourself to determine what happened. But the thing is, it was a great story that was woven all the way throughout this tapestry within the book. So you see what I just did there? I just told you a story about telling a story. That's the thing that you have to learn how to do. And that's when you can do that well, with giving enough of a detail to bring and transport the reader, when you can bring that person into the room and look at the carvings on the wall and look at the artwork that was so majestically placed, and the ceiling fan that's slowly grinding out its spot in the world. How many of you in that moment were transported? How many of you were in that moment like, oh my gosh? That's why certain details matter. I don't want to describe everything down to the fly on the wall, but I do want to transport you enough so that you're vested in the outcome. That's what good story does. Understood? Right? So I know you guys can do this. You guys can do this. Eva says, nope. You do not need to love APA 7. So hopefully you got a little bit out of that narrative there. But the one thing that you can do to help generate your ideas for story is to read outside your genre. If you're going to be writing about business stuff, read other stuff. Read poetry. Read The Old Man and the Sea. Read, again, Hemingway, Moby Dick. No one has ever read that book ever. Literally never. I mean, that book's like a 900-page book, right? But read other things that are going to help you generate ideas on how you can tell better stories. Okay. And that's going to be better for you. So let me know if that's tracking with you guys, because that's exactly what's going to make you a better writer. Okay. So, of course you did. I think you're just one of those people who likes to be a pill, Eva. I love it. That's amazing. All right. So that's the writing component. Now let's talk about the most important thing that you have to do. And the most important thing you have to do is promote. Do not wait until the book is published before you start promoting. I'm just letting you know, like I've already started promoting my next book, Leader Boss. You know why? How I promoted that? I don't know. I've talked about it a couple times on this call. I've told other people who are like, man, when you get that book done, let me know. I'm ready to buy it. Okay. But if you wait until the book is published to start promoting, you're already starting behind the 8 ball. Okay. This is especially if you're self-publishing. But again, if you are not going to self-publish and you're going to work with a publisher, ask them, hey, when can I start promoting this thing? I want this thing to sell well. And they trust and know they do too, because that's how they're getting paid. So if you get snippets of it released prior, get book buyers gathered in Facebook groups if you want. I'm not a big fan of Facebook groups right now, but if you can do that and get people into Facebook groups, like this is how you can really start to get interest generated, or even just on your own social media where you start just, I would do this. I'd put a photo up for attention and then I would post the story. I would literally copy, paste, and I would say excerpted from The Time Wealth the Advantage, releasing in May of 2025. That's what I would do, right? And people are like, wow, I want to read that. I'm like, yes, I bet you do. And I'm going to let you buy it. So that is the absolutely most important thing. So here's the thing about publishing. Realistically, again, like I said, you can work with an agent, you can self-publish, or you can do what's called a hybrid model. If you do work with an agent, I just want you to understand what you don't pay for in dollars is what you give up in control. What you don't pay for in dollars is what you give up in control. So if you're not paying someone in advance, which you should not be, and generally the more established authors are actually getting paid for their manuscripts, then you're giving up control. You're giving up that, just various control of certain things, and profitability, of course, right? Because the publishers have to make some money. So when you're looking at different things like book cover design, you're coming up with a title or subtitle, things like that. I want to let you know, like, this is all stuff that is going to be all on you if you were going to self-publish. I had zero problem with this. If you are going to come up with a title and a subtitle, these are all things that you have to test. So if you're looking at this from the Time Wealthy Advantage, I had several different options for my subtitle. So the title was the Time Wealthy Advantage. That's the headline. The subtitle is what's called the brand promise. That's the promise. So I originally tested, and this is all stuff you have to test. You have to test this with people who are your avatar. So you think about this, the Time Wealth Advantage. Here was one example, is a business owner's 5-step strategic blueprint to freedom. Okay, that was my first one. Then I came up with a business owner's strategic blueprint to freedom. So I said, hey, I went to all my friends on Messenger. Hey, Clarissa, do you like A or do you like B? And Clarissa would say A. I'm like, cool. Kara, do you like A or do you like B? And Kara would say B. And I'm like, great. And then Robert, right? A, and then Eva, and right, B, and blah, 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 blah. And then basically I'm coming up, and then I would come up with a choice C, right? So I'd have a strategic approach to building the life and business you want, which ultimately was the one that I landed on, right? But guess what? It wasn't the one that I picked. Guess who picked it? It was all the people who were voting. I don't get a vote in this. You know why? Because my opinion doesn't matter. I want others to buy the book, not me. So this is why I test. I tested book cover designs. And guess what? The book cover design I picked, no one liked. I was like, really? Are you sure you don't like this one? Right? But I tested. Do you like A or do you like B? They like A. Great. Do you like A or do you like C? They're like A. I'm like, damn it. Right? Because I was really hoping they were going to pick C. And I was like, okay. But at the end of the day, they picked what they liked, including the cover. The title I pretty much had set because that was the title I was working with. But when it came to the cover and it came to the subheading, the subtitle, that's exactly what I was working with. When it came to publishing as well, I want you to think that you can either publish on Amazon or KDP, and this is really so Robert, you probably remember CreateSpace. If you published as many books as you have, CreateSpace was phenomenal, and Amazon purchased CreateSpace, and they now have created KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. Pretty much the same thing. It really hasn't changed a whole lot. And CreateSpace was wonderful. It basically allows you to upload all your stuff and do all the things there. And you can either pick an ISBN. I prefer to buy them through Bowker. Or you can have one assigned by Amazon. Personally, I like to own my own ISBNs because that gives me more rights to my book. Again, it's not giving away rights. If you only allow Amazon if you allow them to issue an ISBN, they retain the rights to basically publish on their platform. Yes, yeah, it was before KDP. Yeah, you're right, Robert. Okay. So thank you. So yes, that is, so ISBN, is where I will buy it on Bowker. And generally it's such a racket. It's like you buy one ISBN for, I think it's $150 and you buy like 5 for like 200. It's such a racket, but you play the game. So, the other thing is you can also publish on Audible. This is something that I did not know. And I'm just going to share this with you, is that if you're going to publish your book on Audible, like meaning you're going to narrate it, you cannot publish it on Audible unless you also have an ebook. I did not know this. And I had no intention of making The Time Wealthy Advantage an ebook, but I had every intention of narrating it, which was a lot of work. That is unbelievably a lot of work. Robert, have you narrated your stuff? I'm just curious, because that is so much work. Oh my gosh. But anyway, you do need the ebook because that's what they use to help segment the chapters. But it's unbelievable amount of work that you end up doing. So there's some revisions on there. Not yet, but that is a goal for my latest book, man. So Robert, you might want to be interested in the, I don't know if you've ever done it, but man, it is a lot of work, but I'm going to show you here in just a little bit, of what, there's a section in the course that might interest you, but the revisions. The reason I put revisions in here is because the nice thing about self-publishing is that if you do find a mistake, you can correct the revisions pretty easily. I actually found a mistake on the back cover of my book, and I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. And I found it like as soon as I published it. And it takes a while, unfortunately, for the revisions to work through, because especially if you've got them like print on demand, they will go ahead and print a dozen or more copies. And because they saw how my sales were before, I think they may have printed several hundred copies. And the revisions they has to take a time like for the revisions to actually work all the way through, but they do work through eventually. And understand the limitations of editors. Editors are limited. Many editors will be looking for grammar. They'll be looking for active voice versus passive voice. I'm not going to describe that. I'll let you look that up on your own. They'll be looking for punctuation and things like that. What they're not going to do is they're not generally looking for the flow of the book as much, or even if you made a promise in chapter 1 and chapter 19 you didn't deliver on that promise, most editors are not going to they're moving too fast. They're not going to catch that sort of thing. They might, but I'm just letting you know there are certain limitations for editors. So just be mindful. This is why you also have to have beta readers. Beta readers are basically your friends that you enlist to say, hey, would you like to be a beta reader for my book? And they go, absolutely, right? Make sure that they're fast readers, though. Like, they're not going to be like, yeah, I'll get to it in the next 27 months. Like, that's not helpful, right? Because you want it to be read in a reasonable amount of time. All right. So that is pretty much it for the publishing section. So let's see here. Crystal is asking any thoughts on Ingram Sparks. I don't know that name. Sorry. I'm not sure who that is. Okay. So that is everything that I have. If you guys would like to put any additional questions in there, Robert, I mentioned this earlier, and again, it might be something that might be interesting to you guys, but I am going to make the mention of the course that I have, and I'm just going to walk through this. I'm going to actually take this down. So if there's really not going to be any new material, for those of you who want to hop off, you'll get the replay at this point. And there's not going to, there's going to be new material, but it's going to be related to the course that I'm going to talk about. So I'll just need a couple of minutes, maybe 5 minutes or so, just to kind of walk through what this is, and then we'll be done. But if you've got any questions, you guys can plug those in, and I'll answer those here in just a hot second. So let me take this down just a second, because I want to share my screen on a different thing here. Let's see, stop screen, and I'm going to bring up here. There we go. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm literally working across like 3 different monitors here, because I'm all sorts of fancy like that, I guess. Okay. And Windows. And there. Okay. So what I'm going to show you as I bring this down, let's see. Okay, perfect. So this is the advanced writing and publishing course, and I'm actually just going to take myself completely down here to the corner. This is the advanced writing and publishing course, and I'm just going to show you just a couple of things in here that would be relevant for you guys to know if you are interested. So first and foremost, I think there's one additional video that has to get uploaded, but right now there's 17 different videos. It's just under 5 total hours of videos, not including there's a bonus video. So this is all, there's a lot of stuff in here, but it's all broken up into like bite-sized little nuggets, about 15 to 20 minutes long. It kind of goes through the first 5 or 6 lessons is pretty much everything we talked about in this session here. And why write a book? There's different things about that, about where, and about writing different things, notes to take along the way, promoting it. We talk a little bit about promotion, publishing basics. We talk a little bit about mistakes to avoid early on in the process. And this is an introductory webinar, very similar to the one that you just took right now. But this is the advanced course right here, which starts in lesson 8. And this is about advanced promotion and getting very granular and specifics about really who it is that you're marketing this book towards and how you can actually start to reach them. There's a book promotion template that you can download so you can actually work on that directly, and really helping to understand why they're going to want to buy your book. There's also advanced promotional tactics, and these are all different things that I have learned over the years watching other authors who have also sold books and getting really granular on what I have seen work and what I have seen not work. And that's specific to me. There's different things that you can do on social media promotion, creating hooks, copy, offers, promoting them on Meta. And there's just a lot there. And that one is a little bit longer just because there was so much. I wasn't able to actually break that up into 2 different videos. There's different delivery options and delivery ideas. Again, for example, in my case, I actually have a black box that I send my books out in, and it's an actual black box. I call it a strategic black box, and that's where people get all 5 of the books. They get the Time Wealthy Advantage, and they get the 4 guides on top of that. But again, the delivery is a big deal. Don't just drop your book in a bag like I used to do and deliver it that way. Getting your ISBN, this is actually how to get that on Bowker, and different things that you have to fill in, and then where to plug that in when you're actually publishing. This walks you through all of the different aspects. There's 3 main pages on KDP and how to actually publish on KDP and what you can expect to see on the platform. So you're going to see screen shares and all of the different things that you need to do when you're actually walking through that. And also ebook formatting, how to format your book for Kindle, if that is something you're planning to do. Again, if you're actually also planning to narrate your book, you actually have to have an ebook format because you won't be allowed to do that. Then uploading it, which is actually kind of easy, but I still had to put that up there. And what you need to prepare for when you are narrating your book. I learned this by trial by fire. That was a lot of work. And also the type of software that you're going to need. I narrated mine on Adobe Audition, and I walked through all of the specifics about narrating on Adobe Audition and also uploading all of it when I was done. So that is everything that I have. That course, just so you know, is $17. It's literally a no-brainer. And if you get into it and you hate it and you're like, no, this was not worth it, I will give you your money back. I don't have a problem with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a link in the chat. If that is something that you would like to purchase, I am going to raise the price at some point. I have a couple of things I want to do before I do that. But I just want to make sure that this is, so the link is in this, the chat right now. If you would like to purchase it, if you're watching this on replay, I'll make sure it's in the show notes. So that is everything I have. I got a couple of questions. I'll let you guys answer that. Becky, is that all on your website? What happens on your website, school, strategic boardroom? So that's a good question. Man, you're asking me like questions like about stuff that I sell. So school is really about, it's about everything as a strategist. And like one of the things that I do as a strategist is I help people with their overall strategy in their business around 4 main functions of business: lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. So everything that I do in school is working with business owners for that purpose. So if they're coming in and they're working, and there's 4 different levels, like again, the base level is $39. And these prices may change depending on when you're watching this on replay. But if that's, you're getting access to all the group trainings, and there's group trainings, there's group calls, you can ask questions just like this. And if you're interested, that's $39. You get access to all these different video trainings that I have that I'm continually uploading. I've only been on school for a couple of months, so it's not entirely built out just yet, but there's a lot of value to it. And, again, you can get in there, and if you decide it's not for you, I give a 90-day money back guarantee. If you're not satisfied, you can get your money back. So, the middle section is the $119 a month, gives you one-to-one coaching with me once a month. If you're wanting more than that, for $499, that is actually everything that I also included, and you basically get unlimited coaching with me. So I don't have a lot of those slots available, but I do have some as of right now. And so if you are interested in joining me on school, you are more than welcome to check me out there as well. Thank you, Becky. I did not mean to talk about that today, but since you asked. So, all right, that is all that I have. I don't see any questions coming up. Thanks so much for sticking around. You guys have been an absolute blast. I've really been looking forward to this session with so many people on board. And man, like hardly anybody dropped off. Like usually I get some people that check in and then check out. I know a couple of people had to leave early, but man, you guys have been a lot of fun. So thank you so very much. I got another question. Hava, do you have an Insta account? Yes, I have an IG. You will not have trouble finding me. Can we follow each other for collaborations? You can find me. I don't have it pulled up. But if you type in my name, you will not have trouble finding me, or I think it's under Strategic Boardroom. So you won't have trouble finding me. But yeah, Hava, very good. All right. Well, thanks everybody for sticking around. You have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the boardroom.